Zombie video games. Inspired often by the works of George Romero, zombie video games have flourished in the most recent years, and I want to know what draws people into these types of games. There are so many different types of video game entertainment, and each one has some point incorporated zombies, ranging from the classic series Resident Evil to the new age, cinematically beautiful The Last of Us. These games reach as far back as Zombie Zombie, released in 1984 for the ZX Spectrum, which was a small console for home computing. The concept of zombies has recently exploded and swiftly adapted into video games, ranging from 1996's Resident Evil, stumbling, shambling zombies, to 2008's Left 4 Dead zombies, which have ones that run, explode, screech, and terrorize on a different level. Late 2008, zombies went through another shift towards the final frontier. Dead Space placed zombies in space, but not only did this extraterrestrial infection reanimate corpses, but the undead transformed into bloodthirsty abominations that, depending on how they took damage, they would change their way of attacking. This concept was much more different than previous games, and the idea of the player's impending doom became more and more clear. In 2009, Resident Evil 5 changed up the formula and changed it from magic or a virus to a parasite. This idea made things a lot more scary because headshots no longer worked. I sat down with a few gamer students here at the University of Iowa and I racked their brains. Pun not intended.
So I guess to start it off, start with Chris. Tell me, what was your first experience with a zombie video game? What sparked it?
My first experience with zombie video game actually was a more family experience. My sister brought home a Nintendo GameCube and we popped in Resident Evil. And we didn't even actually get to play the game that night. We started up, watched the opening sequence, and had to go take out the trash in the middle of the night. And this moment has made me love zombie games ever since because we're walking out, and my brother, big, tall, athletic, very smart guy, is walking back to the door, and our oldest sister just jumps out, "Look out for the dogs!" And he just drops and looks just petrified around him because they had zombie dogs and the cinematic of the video game.
Right.
And I'm never going to forget that, and it always makes me kind of enjoy zombie games, not just for the fear aspect of, oh my goodness, but there's still fun to be had with it that's beyond that fear. You know? Like Halloween, we enjoy scary, but in jest.
Fair enough. Sam, what was your first experience with the zombie video games?
Zombie video games. So, specifically zombie video games.
Zombie
I feel
genre.
like there was a zombie in Ocarina of Time, but that doesn't count, I guess. I'm not going to be able to remember. I wish I would have given this some thought before I came down here. But, I mean, I'm sure I played a Resident Evil game or saw a Resident Evil game. I'm pretty sure it was probably Resident Evil, but I didn't really get into Resident Evil until Resident Evil 4, so if I had seen it or played it, it would have been like a short.
My experience started with Resident Evil 2, actually. My uncle owned it for the Nintendo 64, and it was a forbidden experience because he was at work and I was very small. So I decided to pop in this Nintendo game that he told me not to play because I couldn't handle it. So I popped it in, and he was right, I couldn't handle it. It was too scary. I was Claire Redfield. I was on a road by myself. Zombies came out. I couldn't shoot. I panicked. Fear struck me, and I died. And he came home and wasn't really angry. He was actually surprised that I had tried it. And from then, I guess the reason I stuck with it was it became sort of a personal challenge for me. So I want to get through this game. I don't want to be scared of zombies anymore.
So collectively, which would you say is your favorite zombie video game to date so far? Maybe we can chime in with that.
Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil 4. So, the purist would say it's not a zombie video game because of how the lore or the story is, but at its heart, yes, it's a zombie video game, and yeah, it's the best one.
I actually have not fully finished Resident Evil 4, but I'm aware of its what goes through it. I would have to say if it qualifies for The Last of Us. uh, Along the same lines, a lot of the later Resident Evil games, not quite zombie, but zombie.
It's got the feel. It's got the, survival, scariness.
So what was like the feeling you got from playing these games? What was it? What was kind of like the things you're getting later on?
What I like about Resident Evil 4, and what sets it apart from other zombie games, even from the early Resident Evil games and all the games that ate on Resident Evil style after it got popular, is that Resident Evil 4 throws away the idea of the zombie game being about surviving with a limited number of supplies against a couple of scary enemies, and instead says, well, what if there were just too many enemies for you to handle? That's a completely different kind of fear. So, in Resident Evil 1, the horror comes from, I've only got these 15 bullets, and these zombies take a lot of shots, but in Resident Evil 4, it's like, I've got all these weapons, and I've got all these bullets, but I'm like sort of surrounded, and they're everywhere, and that's what I really like about it. And also, it's just, the whole game, not just talking about the story, just the mechanics and everything, it's a complete reimagining of the Resident Evil series in a really good way. So.
How do you feel?
As a fan of the classics, I'll agree with that, but I do prefer the fear of isolation. I like to know that I'm by myself. Like the reason that later Resident Evil games don't scare me is because you have a partner or you have unlimited access to ammo. You find ammo everywhere. It's not scary anymore when you're Jill Valentine decked out with like an arsenal as opposed to the first game where you have a knife and you find ammo and you're finding ammo not as often and you're by yourself. That's scary to me.
That's definitely something that's been lost in Resident Evil 5 and 6, sort of the black sheep of those series. They did well with sales. They sort of
They're
appealed to
enjoyable
crowd.
experiences, but it's a different experience than it's had from the earlier Resident Evils, which is, again, they're saying it's much more survival rather. 5 and 6 became more
I will say that
zombie shooter. There's still aspects of survival, but not nearly as to the degree.
I think Left 4 Dead tried to do the same kind of premise of what Resident Evil 4 did, where there's just too many to handle, and that's why Left 4 Dead kind of keeps you pumped up and like on adrenaline the entire time because there are too many to handle. Yeah, sure, there's 3 other people with you, but it's scary because there are so many of them.
You said The Last of Us was probably your favorite to date. What was your feeling that made it so, I guess, memorable?
Not so much the zombie parts of the game itself, but rather what it did by having it be this post-infection world, where infection is still spreading, but civilization has reassembled itself. And the biggest threat was not the infected, but rather the other human beings that were also trying to survive.
So, would you say you guys are partial to the characters, or are you more interested in the zombies, what they took out next? Was it the kind of the thrill, or more of the story that kind of hooked?
Both, combination of both, maybe. Like the whole discussion that we just had, I feel like the presence of zombies and an apocalypse brought on by zombies kind of spawns a moral dilemma.
I would have to agree with Caleb. The story and the characters are definitely very drawing aspects. And I would say really only for certain games is the excitement of what will be next, zombie-wise. Resident Evil does a great job with bringing in new boss zombies that are more than just a dead corpse lumbering towards you, even running towards you. They're very interesting powder figures that almost border on that Silent Hill aspect.
Yeah, when it comes to story, story is something that I'm never offend anyone. The Resident Evil story is pretty dumb, but it's like fun dumb. Like Resident Evil 4 is like a dumb action movie the entire time.
Okay, the first three were pretty legit, story-wise.
Like,
I wanted to know who Albert Wesker was. I wanted to know about the Ashfords. I wanted to know, okay? Like, after 4, it did get a little
It's
ridiculous.
extended beyond the original story that it had intended upon, I think, solely because they didn't really know what to do with that story and they wanted to do something bigger. And their main goal was bigger rather than let's finish the story.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not. Regardless of how you feel about the story in any of these games, I think the scariness doesn't come from the story. The scariness comes from within you. If you're not someone who's scared of that zombie coming down the hall toward you, you're not going to be scared just because of the story motivations of any of the characters. It's your own, mind that's going to bring the scares out. So,
how do you think that compares to, let's say, Dead Space, where there's a sort of new idea, these zombies seem to be frontier? Final Frontier.
I mean, when we talk about isolation, Dead Space really goes for that. There's like the most famous alien quote: "In this space, no one can hear you scream."
Yeah.
So let's put a survival horror game in space and do that.
I'd say it functions much more similarly to the later Resident Evil games in the terms of you have a laser, the gun that shoots lasers that will dismember them. And yes, they will keep moving. And I think throughout the game, they blood scroll on the walls scroll on the walls, cut off their heads or something like that. Because that's the only thing that would actually stop these necromorphs. Not going to play it obviously. And I was scared playing the first one because you're very confined. Yes, you're in space, it's limitless, but you are within a small metal shell with a bunch of things that want to kill you and are very creepy and gross looking. So.
And that's only the beginning.
And that's only the beginning of the box, yes, it gets that much worse.
Like, that's nothing to do with zombies. It's not even trying to ape on the zombie game style or anything, but it's still scary for those same reasons. Everything that happens in Bioshock is in, narrow hallways, small rooms.
So it's the setting.
Yeah, it's the setting, the atmosphere that they create.
It's these
Very limited use of what they have. So limited use of what there is.
So comparatively, what aspect of the zombie would you say is the most interesting to you?
For me, it's why there is something. Whether it's black magic reincarnate, brought back from the dead, a biohazard, a infection, biochemical, all sorts of things. There's lots of different reasons of how things become zombies. And that I think is one of the most interesting things to see. How many ways people can think of to create something, the dead, or something that's dead, remanifest itself and have it make sense within their story.
I'll go back to morality, and I'll say that the most interesting part about zombies is how people handle them. I would say it's interesting to watch how what we perceive death to be, and if a zombie is a zombie, are they who they were before? Is there any remnant of who they were before left? How do people handle losing their loved ones? How long do they hold on? Can they kill someone that they once cared about? Who accepts it? Who doesn't?
You look at smart guy, that question.
I might be outlier here. I don't really find zombies that interesting. All of the zombie game experiences I'm talking about, what I really love about those games is that they're zombie games. It's just that they're really great games. I think zombies are just very well fitted for games because they're like Nazis in that you have to give the player no motivation to kill a Nazi. You have to give the player no motivation to kill a zombie. It's just one of those things that people perceive as pure evil. So you can throw 100 of them in a video game and there's no problem mowing them down.
I guess it's an excuse for that.
Yeah. Which is why we get so many zombie video games, zombie TV shows, zombie
are you guys looking forward to any new zombie releases?
Yes,
Which one?
but I'm skeptical because of this conversation. Is like, are zombie games overplayed? I kind of caught wind of Dying Light, and I'm curious because I love zombie games, but I don't want it to let me down in the way that Dead Island did. I feel like I'm in it for story, and Dead Island's story didn't really do it for me. It was all about the leveling up and killing, so I kind of really hope that Dying Light does a little better than that, and I'm still curious about it.
I'll agree with your statement on Dead Island. It was almost exactly what you had described. And with it just being putting a bunch of zombies in a field and saying, we're going to give you a bunch of things to kill them with. And here's some quests to go, some things we'd like you to do as you go through that. It was just, you're running around a beach resort, killing zombies. Plain and simple. However, sadly, I really haven't been keeping up on a lot of the games that have been coming out, so I haven't heard about anything that's related zombie-wise to these upcoming titles that will be coming out later soon.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. There's nothing really zombie that I would call a zombie game, focused that I'm really like hyped for at the moment. But there's always room to be surprised by something. Last year there was the Walking Dead sort of adventure game. It wasn't really by any means a zombie game that we've been talking about in the traditional sense, but it featured zombies, being as it was based on the Walking Dead, comic TV franchise. That was a really good game, surprisingly, I think. So there's always new things you can do with the idea of the zombies.
Can I change my answer? Because season 2 is going to be awesome.
Yeah, they are doing a whole other set of those games, so I'm sure those will be really good in the same way that I enjoyed those original Walking Dead games. But they're gonna have to do something special for it to be surprising again, like it was the first time. So we'll see.
With so many zombie titles surfacing recently, what do you think might be the biggest draw in about this zombies in modern society? I think you touched on it, this sort of fodder, this excuse to kind of just throw zombies at people because there's not like a sense of humanity, I guess, because you can just put them in any sense and kill them without reason, I guess. But, thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know what the zombie craze is. Maybe you guys will have more to say about this, but I mean, it seems like ever since the Walking Dead comic got big, TV show got big, and then everything blew up. Yeah, and
It's the what if scenario that people love. People love to think about sitting at work. They love to think about, what if a zombie apocalypse were to happen right now? Where would I go? Who would I keep with me? Could I go and bash my neighbor's face in? Like, will I have an excuse, a reason to make it okay? Is it still okay? What weapons would I use?
Does it make me a bad person if I
Would
don't
I
make it big?
survive?
the interesting thing is, like, I mean, what was the first one? Was it Night of the Living Dead was the very first Romero?
Yeah.
See, that was a big-ish movie back when it came out, but it didn't spark the same kind of craze that we have today. So that's why I question that idea. Because the idea of zombies have been around for a while. I just don't know why it's gotten big.
What would we say is like the first real zombie
The
video?
first zombie video game was 1984. It's called Zombie for the ZX Spectrum. And it was in 96 that the first Resident Evil came out. And they actually had Romero film a trailer for Resident Evil 2. And they actually asked him to do a film for the first Resident Evil movie. But they canned the script because they believed it alienated too many players. Or just newcomers in general. So there's actually, it's on YouTube, trailer for the second Resident Evil game. And it's referred to as like Romero kind of sparked this idea in zombie video games.
Yeah, I think it's because Caitlin touched on like the psychology of like what is a zombie? Are we allowed to, how should we feel when you have to kill someone who's a loved one that's a zombie? All that stuff. That's what Romero's
Resident Evil 6, there's the beginning shot is in the young story where the president dies. That ties into kind of that emotional tie between people who are close, who kind of breaks it all.
He wasn't really affected by it though. Because
I don't know if
he has already gone through a lot in previous games story-wise. He's been through a lot by this point.
Oh yeah.
So I think at that point he knows he has bigger concerns right now than that, and he's already accepted. As soon as they're bit, they're gonna die. They're gonna turn.
Yeah. And not even specifically talking to just zombie games or zombie movies, but just any piece of fiction. If you want to make someone's death mean something, there has to be a reason for you to care. And so when you have something like that, where within the first minute of a game, a character who you have no reason to care about gets shot by a character who you might have some tie to, we have no.
There will be no emotional response because you're not emotionally invested within that character.
Yeah, I don't care about the
Were
president.
they to kill off Leon, then there'd be a strong emotional investment. Like if one of the main characters had been bitten, that would cause a reaction.
I think that's something, if we want to tie it back to the zombie thing, that's a lot of things those zombie stories miss. And that's probably why people love The Walking Dead so much. The Walking Dead, much like Game of Thrones, has no reservations about killing off any of the adored characters, which creates this constant tension for fans because they know that their favorite character could be gone in the next page or the next scene.
It's kind of sadistic.
Well, thank you guys for joining me. I'm glad I could get your input on this, and thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
You heard it here, folks. I hope you liked the video. The group I interviewed were great sports about the constant interruptions during filming, and would love to do another piece with them sometime soon. Special thanks goes out to Chris Buck, Sam Stewart, and Caitlin Miller for all their input. This is Randy Rapp, signing off.